people meet an INFJ for the first time, something quietly unusual happens. Something they can't immediately name but definitely feel. It begins with an almost magnetic pull, a feeling that this person standing in front of them is both gentle and intense, warm yet mysteriously withdrawn, fully present yet somehow observing from another dimension. Most people can't figure out why they feel this way. They just know the interaction feels different from anything they're used to. If you want to truly understand yourself and unlock your full potential as an INFJ, check out the INFJ Purpose Compass today. The link is in the description of this video. At first meeting, an INFJ's presence often feels calming, like emotional white noise that instantly softens the environment. People tend to open up without meaning to. They share things they didn't plan to, sometimes things they've never told anyone. It's not because the INFJ pries, but because their eyes communicate something rare, genuine interest. There's a depth to their attention that people aren't accustomed to. It makes them feel seen, not in a spotlighted, uncomfortable way, but in a deeply reassuring, almost healing way. As the conversation unfolds, most people start sensing an almost psychic element in the INFJ's responses. The INFJ will say something that hits directly at the heart of the person's situation, even if that person hasn't expressed it. It can feel like the INFJ is reading emotional layers that haven't been spoken aloud. Some find it comforting, others find it unnerving, but nearly everyone remembers it. In this first encounter, the INFJ's intuition becomes a silent force, subtle, yet unmistakably powerful. People also notice the INFJ's contradictions almost immediately, even if they can't articulate them. The INFJ may come across quiet but not shy, soft-spoken yet confident, reserved but somehow deeply connected. They give the impression of someone holding an ancient library of thoughts behind their eyes, even if they haven't said much. This duality creates a sense of allure. People feel drawn in, curious, wanting to understand this person who seems to exist slightly outside the usual human template. The INFJ's empathy is also another immediate impact point. It doesn't manifest in dramatic expressions or excessive emotional displays. Instead, it shows up in micro-moments. The way they tilt their head while listening, the slight shift in tone when speaking about something sensitive, the calm steadiness in their presence when someone is distressed. People often leave the interaction feeling lighter without knowing why. The INFJ has a way of absorbing emotional static in the environment and naturally smoothing it out. It's not something they try to do. It's simply built into them. But alongside this gentle warmth, there is a subtle barrier people sense. The INFJ may ask thoughtful questions, offer insightful comments, and express genuine warmth, yet there is something unreachably private about them. It's as if part of their soul remains locked behind a beautifully carved door. People feel connected to them, yet simultaneously aware that the INFJ is holding back vast parts of who they are. This paradox fuels curiosity and sometimes fascination. Another striking effect of meeting an INFJ is how memorable they are. Even from a brief conversation, people tend to remember details about the INFJ, their tone, their energy, the way the interaction made them feel. The INFJ leaves emotional fingerprints instead of typical conversational impressions. Long after the meeting, people catch themselves replaying the exchange, wondering why it impacted them so strongly or why it felt strangely significant. The INFJ's ability to mirror others without losing themselves also becomes evident early on. People feel understood because the INFJ naturally adapts their communication style to match the emotional wavelength of the person they're speaking with. This mirroring isn't manipulation. It's the INFJ's way of forging genuine connection. It makes people feel like they've known the INFJ much longer than they actually have. It creates a sense of effortless rapport, even if the INFJ remains internally guarded. As the interaction continues, people often notice how authentic the INFJ is. They don't engage in small talk for the sake of noise. Their words feel intentional, their reactions sincere. They have a presence that says, "I'm here and I'm listening," without performing or exaggerating anything. This authenticity is refreshing in a world where many conversations feel rushed or shallow. The INFJ's sincerity stands out, and people naturally trust it. Toward the end of the first meeting, there's usually a shift in the atmosphere, subtle but meaningful. People sense that the INFJ is withdrawing slightly, not out of disinterest, but because they instinctively protect their emotional energy. This withdrawal is gentle, graceful, almost invisible unless someone pays close attention. The INFJ gives so much emotional and intuitive presence that they often need to retreat inward to recharge. Sensitive people pick up on this. They feel the INFJ begin to pull their energy back like a tide receding. Yet despite this retreat, most people walk away with the impression that they've just encountered someone rare, someone who feels almost out of place in a modern world. Some describe meeting an INFJ as meeting an old soul. Others describe it as meeting someone who sees the world through a lens they've never encountered before. And some can only describe it as meeting someone who feels different in a way they can't quite explain. Another thing that happens when people meet an INFJ for the first time is the sudden realization that they're interacting with someone who notices the subtleties most people overlook. While most personalities take in what is said, the INFJ absorbs what isn't said. The sigh between sentences, the quick flicker of discomfort, the shift in posture that betrays insecurity or excitement. Even in a first meeting, they catch these micro-expressions with uncanny accuracy. This makes people feel strangely decoded, almost as if their inner world is being quietly read without judgment. It's not intrusive, just deeply perceptive in a way that leaves a lingering sense of being thoroughly understood. This ability to notice the invisible often creates a feeling of emotional safety for the other person. They sense that the INFJ won't weaponize their vulnerabilities or mock their sensitivity. Instead, the INFJ's energy encourages honesty. People who tend to present a tough facade unexpectedly soften. Those who usually dominate conversations find themselves speaking more thoughtfully. Even the emotionally guarded may discover themselves revealing pieces of their truth because something about the INFJ signals that it's okay to relax. This emotional disarming effect is subtle but powerful, and it shapes the entire tone of the encounter. People also notice how the INFJ's mind is always making connections, weaving patterns, and interpreting meaning at levels most people don't consciously operate on. This can make the INFJ seem philosophical, even without trying. Their comments may sound simple on the surface, but carry surprising depth. People leave thinking, why did that one sentence feel so profound? They don't realize that INFJs filter every observation through intuition, symbolism, and empathy before releasing it into the conversation. Because of this rich inner world, people often feel that the INFJ brings something almost mystical to the interaction. Even skeptics sense the difference. Not a supernatural force, but a quality that feels rare and elevated. It's the way the INFJ connects events, emotions, and motives into a coherent story. It's the way they see beneath chaos and point to underlying structure. It's the way they speak with quiet wisdom that feels older than their age. And this mystical, almost oracle-like impression deepens the intrigue people feel when they meet them for the first time. Yet, as this intrigue grows, so does a gentle frustration for some people. They're drawn in, captivated, curious, but they eventually realize that the INFJ reveals very little about themselves. They offer emotional clarity, but they don't volunteer personal details. They listen deeply, but they rarely open up with equal intensity. This imbalance can make the INFJ feel like a puzzle, one with missing pieces that no one is allowed to see. People often walk away thinking, I shared so much, and still know almost nothing about them. This sense of mystery is not intentional manipulation. It's simply an INFJ's natural instinct to protect their inner world until trust is earned. The paradox of being both deeply connected yet emotionally guarded creates another powerful effect. People tend to idealize the INFJ after the first meeting. Because the INFJ fills in emotional gaps, mirrors others, and offers insight without revealing much about themselves, others project their own interpretations, fantasies, or desires onto them. The INFJ becomes whatever the person subconsciously wishes them to be: a confidant, a soulmate, a wise guide, or a calming presence. This idealization often happens instantly and unconsciously. It's not that the INFJ pretends to be perfect. It's that their reserved nature leaves space for the mind to fill in details. This idealization also leads to a subtle shift in how people behave around the INFJ. They may become more attentive, more thoughtful, or more self-aware because they feel they're interacting with someone who sees them clearly. People start monitoring their own emotional tone or words without being asked. The INFJ's quiet presence seems to elevate the emotional energy in the room, encouraging authenticity and discouraging superficial behavior. It's as though their mere existence raises the standard of connection. After meeting an INFJ, people walk away with a strange mix of calm, curiosity, and emotional resonance. People feel grounded yet stirred, seen yet mystified, connected yet longing for more depth. It's as if the INFJ left an imprint not on the mind, but on the emotional body. Meeting an INFJ for the first time is not just a social experience. It is a psychological and emotional ripple that continues long after the moment has passed. Another thing that happens when people come in contact with an INFJ is that over time, people start questioning themselves because of the INFJ. The INFJ's calm, reflective presence often acts like a mirror, one that doesn't distort, judge, or exaggerate, but instead quietly reflects a person's true intentions and emotional state. After meeting an INFJ, many people find themselves thinking more deeply about how they came across, what they said, or why they reacted a certain way. It's not that the INFJ asks probing questions. It's that their natural depth awakens introspection in others. This self-awareness can feel refreshing for some, uncomfortable for others, yet undeniably impactful for everyone. This introspective ripple often leads people to realize how unusual the conversation felt. They notice that they spoke about things with the INFJ that they usually reserve for someone they've known for months or years. They recall moments where the INFJ's silence felt like permission to think, rather than an awkward pause. They replay subtle insights the INFJ offered, insights that seem small in the moment, but gain meaning the more they reflect. This delayed understanding is one of the INFJ's quiet strengths. They plant seeds without trying, and those seeds bloom in the mind long after the interaction has ended. The INFJ usually leave people feeling curious about them. This curiosity becomes a soft tug in their thoughts. The INFJ becomes an emotional riddle they want to understand, yet the more they try to define the feeling, the harder it is to describe. This inability to neatly categorize the INFJ is part of what makes that first encounter so unforgettable. This curiosity then transitions into admiration for the INFJ's emotional intelligence. Even if the INFJ did nothing overtly impressive, people recognize something rare in the way they navigate interactions. They notice the INFJ didn't interrupt, didn't try to dominate the conversation, didn't judge, didn't rush, and didn't perform. Instead, they engaged with a level of authenticity and presence that feels almost lost in modern communication. Many people walk away thinking, I wish more people interacted like that. This admiration often evolves into respect, even if the person doesn't know the INFJ well enough to articulate why. But with admiration also comes a faint sense of distance. People sense that although the INFJ made them feel understood, the INFJ themselves remains mostly unreadable. There's an emotional opacity to the INFJ that becomes more noticeable the more a person reflects. It dawns on them that while the INFJ saw them clearly, they saw only shadows of who the INFJ truly is. This realization deepens the sense of mystery around the INFJ. It makes people want a second encounter, not out of casual interest, but out of a desire to access more of that enigmatic depth. The point is, when people come in contact with an INFJ, even though the INFJ does nothing dramatic, their presence creates a psychological resonance that continues shaping thoughts and emotions long after the meeting has ended. And that is the unexplainable magic of encountering an INFJ for the first time. A single moment that refuses to fade, a simple exchange that becomes a quiet turning point, and a person who feels less like someone you met, and more like someone your soul recognized.